Hey, you know what? It's to the point where like I love the cameras around, but the only thing that I don't like about like being filmed, especially when I'm going like through my day to day, and especially doing like during ministry, like evangelizing, or like even tomorrow, like at crossover, like it's gonna be dope because it's good content. But I try not to overthink it. But you know, like some people can interpret it like, oh, bro, like always got a camera. You know what I mean? Or like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he just clout chasing, and that can cause people to like question my motives. You know what I mean? But they don't understand the fullness of like the project and the entirety of it, or even this in that conversation. Like if I'm coming to have a genuine conversation, like I would be having that conversation anyway. But now you might second guess it because the camera's there. Welcome to the ReStart, man. Back on the grind in my hometown. Venice, Florida, South Venice, V-Town, and as you can see, this is where I came up at, man, out here in the burbs in South Venice. And it's funny because I was doing an IG interview. It was my first IG interview the other week, and I'm always gonna keep it 1,000. I want to genuinely always like, you know, just be who I am, you know, not just who I am now in Christ, but who I've always been. I'm always gonna be authentic and communicate, you know, my story fully, all facts. So during the interview, you know, the guy's asking about my adolescence, you know, my upbringing, and come on, bro, my light green. As you can see, my driving skills is still not all the way up the park.
You got that.
So he was asking about my upbringing, and I was, you know, communicating to him. I'm from the 941, Sarasota County, South Venice, and like, yo, I'm from the burbs. And he's like, hold on. He's like, you from the burbs, bro? And he's like, yo, based upon like your demeanor, your appearance all tatted up, the way that you communicate, you know, your story, all the years you've been in prison, like, yo, I would automatically assume like, yo, you from like the slums, you from the trenches. And that's not true at all, man. I'm from South Venice, bro. Like, I think Sarasota County is literally one of the richest counties in Florida. And Venice, Florida is like the retirement capital, one of the retirement capitals, you know, of the state. Nothing but elderly people down here. And obviously just like every city, you know what I mean, you got crime, you got like a underground of a whole bunch of like juvenile delinquents and, you know what I mean, dope boys and drug dealers and all that. But yeah, this is where I'm from, bro. But just like on the street aspect of it, I mean, to where like your average eye couldn't see. I mean, obviously not only is this a wealthy area, but no matter what person's like economical status is, a lot of people use drugs. So the people down here who use drugs, a lot of these people got money, you know what I mean, just blowing it on clothes and girls and going out and loud and, you know what I mean, rent or whatever. So yeah, this is where I didn't grow up here. This is way out here in South Venice. And when my mother, I'm trying to think when we moved out here. My grandmother sold the condo she was living in after my grandfather had died. So me, my mom, and my sister were living in another house in South Venice. So my grandmother took like all the money from her husband, which is my grandfather, his like, you know, whatever they give when someone dies, like I forget what's it called, insurance, life insurance or whatever, and all like his retirement money. She took all that money, and my mother was making like all right money, but I think it was mostly like all my grandmother's money, and they got this house. So I think I moved out here when I was 13. As you can see, it's a nice like deed restricted community, and that used to cause chaos out here, bro, especially because all these, you know, people, it's a higher middle class, they all felt safe out here. So when I was a kid, I ain't do nothing but break into all their cars and steal all the money that they would leave in there, and just be causing chaos. Just, I got all these, you know, clientele coming here through late night, serving up my grandma's garage. All right. And every time ready to rock.
Yes, sir. I'm laughing, bro.
Hey, so the other day my dog told me I was chain ganged out, and if you wonder why, it's because first of all, I'm very frugal with my money, man. I save money, so I don't be going. I'm a coffee fiend, you know what I mean. All the years in prison, just drinking coffee all day, every day. So I won't go to a gas station and buy coffee. Check this out. I keep instant coffee in the whip, and whenever I want some coffee in the car, I go ahead and get my cup, and he clowns me about using this foam cup, and it's so caffeined out already. And I stop at the gas station, and instead of spending money on coffee, I fill my cup up, take it to the bathroom, put some cold or hot water in it. Normally don't get hot, and I put it in the microwave and I'm gone. All right, that's good.
Hey, my name's Eileen, and I'm Steven's mother.
And what kind of kid was he growing up?
Oh, he was very cute, very extremely energetic, lots of energy, really great little boy. I was always shocked how other parents would come up to me and just tell me how wonderful little kid he was. Very polite, very kind, gentle, but again, I've never seen a kid with as much energy as he's had.
And what about the divorce between you and his dad? How did he take that?
He was very close to his dad, but we had to leave Houston and move to Florida, just for economic reasons. I just couldn't afford living on my own and not having the support of my mother and father. They took care of my two kids after school, so we came here to Florida. But I always encouraged the kids to call their fathers, often talk to him as much as they wanted to. Then they could spend the summers with him, for as long as they wanted. But he did miss his father, but they did have a fairly close relationship. It wasn't until that he went overseas to work, that's when, he really missed him, and I think that really hurt him tremendously.
How come? I mean, like, what was it about, his father leaving? Like, how close was he to his father?
I think at the time it was actually a combination. I had remarried, and then he got really close to my second husband, and then when we were going through divorce, again, I think we were going through divorce, his father was going overseas pretty much at the same time, so he was losing all his, father figures. It just was hard on him. I think he missed them, a lot. And then at the same time, it was a combination of different things going wrong. Because his grades were bad in high school, he couldn't play anymore. That also happened about the same time. So at that point, Steven just started getting in trouble, fights at school. And it's a shame that they just, as soon as a kid gets into a little bit of trouble, they want to put them into the system. And once you're in the system, it's difficult to get back out. And it just was just a spiral down the hill, and he never got out of it. So it was.
Did he ever feel like it was his fault, what happened between you and his father, or you and his stepdad?
No, I don't think he ever felt guilty or felt like it was his fault. At least I don't think so, because I always made sure he understood it had nothing to do with the children. It was just, just me and, my exes, as far as, it was, just between us. We always tried, at least I tried to shield them from what was going on, with my relationships. So I don't think that they felt they were responsible for anything.
Okay, I can understand that. It's a tough situation as a kid to go through.
Mm-hmm.
How did he view his father as a kid? And over the years, as he became a teen, as he became an adult, did he always share the same, view and vision of his father?
Well, as a kid, and I think this is what hurt him the most, he just put his father on a pedestal, just idolized him. And then whenever he went overseas to work, his father told him that if he didn't behave, he would have to come back. Well, Steven started misbehaving, I think deep down thinking, well, maybe this will make him come back. And his father didn't follow through on that. So even though he kept threatening him, well, if you don't behave, I'm going to have to come back. If you keep getting in trouble, I'll have to come back. And he never followed through. So I think at that point, Steven started resenting his father. And I think that's, again, where things started going bad. I hate to point fingers.
No.
I was just as guilty, not seeing some of the things he was doing, now that he tells me the things that he did do, I'm in shock and just can't understand how it happened, how I didn't see a lot of the things. So,
It always feels like a cycle. Like,
mhm.
you know, our parents, they didn't see the things that we did. I mean, or like our parents, when they were kids, their parents didn't see some of the things that they might have done. And, you know, it seems like a generational thing, like where,
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, this was nothing like what I grew up with. Me and my sister, my brother, we were all goody goodies. Never ever got into trouble. Never even close to what Stephen did. I mean, so this was all new to me. As far as him with the drugs, it was, you know, he just wasn't around it as far as being little. So how he got into it just floors me. But, you know, it's, you know, what kids, you know, are exposed to nowadays. And, you know, like I said, I just couldn't comprehend it or see it because I was never exposed to it, never was around it, as far as definitely the drug part of it. So, you know, I could see where, you know, if I was around it or had an inkling of this stuff, maybe I would have been a little bit wiser, but I was oblivious to it, totally oblivious.
I can understand that. I mean, if it was something you never dealt with in life, of course, it's going to feel like, whoa, where is this coming from?
Yeah, exactly. So,
What about his sister? He has a sister named Stacy, am I correct?
yes.
How was their relationship back then and even now?
Well, with the two of them, when they were really little, they were so close. They played together. I was actually looking through some of these pictures of them when they were little, and, you know, they played really well. And whenever we first came to Florida, we'd go into this swimming at my mother's condo, and they were always like, watch me, and Stephen would do something, watch me, and then Stacy would want to do something, watch me, and then it was like back at like a tennis match, you know, just watching them, watch me. So they were fantastic when they were little, but as soon as they started getting a little bit older, Stacy wanted her space. You know, she wanted to, don't go in my room. That's when the fights started. That's when they started not getting along. But I guess it's very typical for brothers and sisters when the teen years not getting along. She had her friends. She didn't want him, you know, he was the little brother, you know, tagging along, things like that. But once he started going into, getting into trouble and going into the prison system, that's pretty much when she cut him out. It, I think, was too painful for her to deal with. You know, of course, when you have a sibling going into jail is something you don't want to talk about, think about, I think. So it was very painful. So she pretty much didn't want to keep connected with them. She cut off all communication with them. So now that he's finally out, they're finally starting to reconnect. And it's funny because she doesn't even really know him anymore because they've been apart for so long. So they're both getting to know each other, which is great. I didn't think it would happen this quickly. Honestly, I thought she would take her quite a while before she would let her guard down and let him back into her life. But I think she's, you know, seeing that he has changed, that he's not going to go down that path anymore, which we're all really hoping we can see the difference in him. So I think that's helping a lot.
Awesome. It's tough, I mean, for siblings not to talk, you know. You have a sibling, usually in people's head, that's supposed to be the closest person in your life, you know.
Yeah, and I think that hurts Stephen the most, because I've always been in communication with him, you know, a lot. Never stopped that communication, but with Stacy, that hurt him quite a bit. He has a hard time understanding why, But I'm trying to explain to him as far as, her thoughts, why she would do that, and he's, I think, understanding it from her point of view a little bit better.
That makes sense. Now tell me about, I know you were saying like he was a great kid of like growing up. Of course that's why it really caught you on by surprise. Tell me about what made him different from other kids in your opinion?
He was always a leader. He was not shy at all. He would go up to people, strangers in the store, when he was probably about maybe 9 years old or so. He'd go up to them and say, "What you doing?" or "Hi," or just to be funny and just to make them laugh. He would just do the craziest things, and he was when he got involved in football, the coaches would get him to get the team all pumped up. He was just a little comedian. Like I said, he had more charisma than I've ever seen a little kid have. So he was quite funny.
Was sports an outlet for him?
Definitely. He loved sports because he liked being a leader. He liked, I guess, the attention too. He was always very little. So I think being really good in football made him feel more confident, made up for him being small. So even though he was the smallest kid pretty much on his football team, he was always the most aggressive and never quit. I mean, he had no fear, which made him, really good in football. So I think that made up for him being small. It gave him that confidence and the respect from the other team members. The guys that were bigger, he knew I could tackle you and bring you to the ground. So.
And what about, when did you notice like a change in his behavior? Because he had such these good qualities as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
When was like that first notice, where did that come from?
Well, he was always pretty good at home. When he got into the first fight in high school, that's when things went just wrong. Guess he got into a fight, and again, this is where I think I disagree with the school systems and the court systems. They're ready to, put him into juvenile detention right away over, fight. The school's ready to kick him out of school immediately because of one fight. The zero tolerance, I think, is not productive. It's like, these kids, have to learn, okay, punish them, but why kick them out of school? The thing that shocked me the most was I went into the school and I sat down with the vice principal. First thing he did was he pulled out his grades, and he saw he was not doing well in school. And then at that point, he's like, well, we're going to have to, get him out of school. Personally, I feel that if he had better grades and he wasn't bringing down their scores, they would have not kicked him out of school. So it's just, to me, insane. Okay, punish him, detention, suspension, but to literally kick him out of school for a fight is insane. And like I said, this is just where he starts spiraling, out of control, just getting into, another fight, things like that.
Do you think he was battling any kind of insecurities, like in his head, like as a kid growing up? Do you think he had things that he felt like he needed to prove, or things that he had low self-esteem about?
Again, I think it might have been about his size. He was, like I said, he was small. He had a hard time. He played older, lighter, and he literally would try to hold a water bottle and hide it so that he could make the weight, or he'd put rocks. somewhere so that he could have a little more weight to him, because we were always afraid he wouldn't make the weight. So I think it was a lot to do with his size, that he felt insecure, and he, maybe at school they picked on him because he was small. But like I said, when he played football, he had the respect of all his teammates. So once he lost that being on the team, that's where things went bad.
No, understandable. So he had like a Napoleon complex a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. I even heard him mention it, so he's aware that he had that issue. So, which, I didn't realize he was self-aware of that already.
My
But
brother was small. Like my brother's like a bigger guy now, but at EI's age, he was just like that, like a tiny guy.
yeah,
Even though, and I was always tall, so people would probably think if we were the same age that I was the big brother, he was the little brother.
yeah.
That's how short he was.
hmm
When he first started getting in trouble, did you think that was like a phase? Like because of course it caught you off guard when you first seen it. So did you think,
Yeah.
he'll snap out of it?
Yeah, I always thought he'd snap out of it, or once he learned his lesson, that it won't happen again. But that's not what happened. Every time he'd get out, he'd get right back into trouble again. And I never bailed him out. I figured, okay, you're in trouble, you're going to jail, you're going to learn your lesson, and this'll, you'll learn your lesson. But he never learned his lesson. He would always come back out and he would do the wrong things. Whenever he would get into trouble, instead of stopping and just dealing with the situation, he'd go running off. Now he'd be fleeing the scene. So he would just compound the issues, the trouble he was already in, by fleeing. He had that instinct just to run away. So every time he got into trouble, he made it worse by taking off.
Was he violent like growing up? Like
No.
as far not of course not in the household, but I'm saying like with other people or anything like that?
No, it wasn't until he got into high school, and then he started getting into fights. That's when he started, I guess, getting more violent. And basically every time he got into jail is because of battery, because of a fight. So that's.
What do you think? What do you think a lot of his like inner hurt, like in pain, came from, like as a kid? Do you think it was a special place that he was hurt, or maybe just from like his father leaving, that was like a big hurt for him?
Yeah, that was, I think, the biggest hurt. And he still has issues with his father, and trying to get past that pain and past that so he can forgive him and move on and get that behind him. But he's still struggling with that. So him and his father, have a more complicated relationship.
Right.
So
When did you notice he was first starting to sell like drugs? When did you find that out, or how?
I guess I started being suspicious when he was getting in trouble. He was, I guess, running out of the house a lot, and so I started searching his room, and that's when I started finding things. And he was very clever.
What did you find?
I found this even reminded me the other day, and I totally don't remember it, but apparently I found a big bag of marijuana, and I flushed it down the toilet, and he was just so furious that I flushed it all down the toilet. But then I found later, when he got, I guess he was, older, I was going through his room, and I went under the bed, and I saw that he had cut a hole in the box spring, in the fabric on the bottom of the box spring. And so I put my hand up in it, and I was reaching around, and I had to reach back pretty far, but I reached, and I found a bag of cocaine. So, so that got flushed.
How did you feel? Like, I can only imagine if I walk in my daughter's room and find out she's, doing or selling drugs.
Yeah.
What is that emotion that you felt?
Yeah, just a heartache. I mean, and just scared, and terrified. And then not only for him, but then he's bringing this into my house, and what could happen as far as, my mother at that time, she's in her 90s, and what would happen if somebody comes into the house because of him. So it was a whole, scared for myself, my mother, him, him going down this path. It's just insane.
No, I can understand that. Did you, what do you think, what do you think made, because of course he went out a lot, and of course now you're piecing together the things he would do when he went out. What do you think made him gravitate towards like the Black community and then those type of people at that time as well?
There again, I think because he felt in charge. He felt like he was maybe important and a leader again. He's not a follower, he's a leader. And I think that's where he felt empowered, he felt important, he felt like he was big guy, again, somebody in charge. I think that's why he's always maintained that leadership throughout his life. Even while he was in prison, he was taking charge and putting together events. He would ask me to send him games, so that he was organizing talent shows, and he was organizing parties, and I would send him these games in the mail so that they could have a big event. It was like a mystery type game, and who done it, and so I don't know how many of those I sent him, but he does like to be a leader. He's always been like that. So like I said, a lot of charisma, and I think with what he's doing now, it just fits him. He's always had a huge imagination, and while he was in prison the whole time, I kept saying, use that imagination you have. Be a writer. Start writing things, whether it's maybe a book for your kids, or poetry, or just your daily stuff. I would encourage him to write. Which I'm glad he's done. He's does a lot of writing, and that he's put it down to music. So I just could see the progression, and now that he's into music, it makes sense, because he's using that imagination, and he's using his skills as a writer. That's why I really like his music, because it's telling more of a story, a very deep, very personal story, and I can hear it in those words. It just means a lot when I listen to his music.
When he was growing up, do you think he had any friends, or can you remember like any specific friends who were like you knew for sure were a negative influence on him?
No.
Wow.
He had great friends. They were all, as far as I knew, at least the ones that I knew of, were wonderful, great kids. Most of them were on the football team. Quite a few of them went on to play college ball, and 3 of them went on to be in the pros. So it was, he had great friends. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. How did you feel when he first started to go to jail? Maybe, I guess his first, because the 3 times he went to prison weren't the first time he went to jail, right?
Yeah, he went in that junior,
right.
Whatever
Was
they
he there a lot?
Yeah, he was away probably from the time he was 15 on. He'd get out for a little bit, but then go right back in. So he didn't have his 16th birthday at home. He didn't have his 18th birthday at home. He wasn't home when he was all these important big years that you want to celebrate, 21. He wasn't home. So he was pretty much from 15 on away. he'd be at home for a little bit, not very long.
How did that make you feel? That's tough.
Very, like I said, disappointed, very frustrated. Like I said, every time you think he'd learn his lesson, it's not hard to be good. It's not hard to stay out of trouble. But he had violated his probation, whether like he would sneak out at night, he would open up his window, knock out the screen, and even when he knows that they could check on him, he was doing things like that. So I'm getting up in the middle of the night, answering the door. Here is the sheriff at the front door at 2 a.m, checking on Stephen. And I'm like, yeah, he's in bed. Yeah, he's there. He's, well, I need to see him. Comes in, open the door, he's not there. He's gone. So, then violate probation, back. He gets sent right back. All the time. There's this one time he snuck out and they went looking for him. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, but I know he was on his bike. He went into this, I guess, where it's like swampy in this water. It was behind this store, and he ran into that. So they had his bike. He ran out of his shoes. They had his shoes. They had his bike. They knew who it was. They brought the stuff back here, and they had dogs after him. So now I'm terrified that they're going to kill him. They're going to shoot him. The dogs are going to attack him. I think they even mentioned they had a helicopter looking for him. And he was in the swamp water. The alligators could have gotten him, or the water moccasins, all this stuff could have happened. And I'm like, just praying that he doesn't get killed. And they finally, I don't remember what happened after that. Is they finally found him, or he came back, and then there's so much stuff, it all blurs together, and I can't remember what story went with what, but I just remember that one where he was in that water for like hours, and I was terrified that he would get killed. So that was my always biggest worry, is that with him always taking off and running away, that he was going to get killed.
So I'm going to switch gears. Tell me about his relationship with his stepfather. How was that?
Well, he has 2 stepdads. So the first one, he was very close with him, actually, because he was big into the football, so he would take him to his football practice, or was really involved in that part of it. So whenever we were just married for a short time, 3 years, whenever that ended, I think that hurt Stephen quite a bit, because he was, I think, more attached to him than his own dad, because he was there, at that point, still, his father wasn't around, but his stepfather was there. So whenever that ended, I think that hurt quite a bit. Now, with his second stepdad, that was when he was already away, pretty much getting into trouble and not around much at all. So they didn't have much connection at the beginning, before Stephen went away for the long time. They had some issues too. But the surprising thing, and Stephen probably doesn't even realize this, my husband, his second stepdad, was always very supportive as far as trying to help me understand possibly the reasons why Stephen was doing the things he was doing. And he was just always very supportive as far as, with my relationship with my son. So he wasn't anybody that said, oh, cut him off or anything like that. He understands, my relationship. This is my son, and how important he is to me.
What was When was the first time you noticed Stephen's like desire for music? Did that come out of nowhere for you?
Yeah, that pretty much came out of nowhere, but that happened while he was probably maybe the last, I don't know how many years in jail. He started asking me to send him books about how to write songs, things like that. So he'd find some books that I thought were good and send them to him. So that was the first I heard of that.
So basically, when he was in prison or jail, this is when he developed like a like for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If it was before that, I was not when he was home, not
aware.
Not in high school or middle school or
Right.
like that.
A lot of kids sometimes hide that like because they're nervous to do it in front of their family, like the older generation.
Yeah.
When did you notice like he was a creative person?
Ever since he was little. Now, so at first, he would, like I said, he had a great imagination, and he would take a song and he would change the words up and make it a funny song. So that's why whenever he was in prison, I said, I know you have a great imagination, very creative, start writing. So that's
Awesome.
I didn't know he'd go into.
That's the best advice you could ever give him.
Yeah.
So he's been to prison 3 times.
Mhm.
If you don't mind, from your perspective, what happened? The first, the second, and third time, I guess, if you can remember.
Yeah, that's where it all becomes a blur. And like I said, it was the last time was the hardest for me to accept that he screwed up again, because he got out, he got a job with the roofing company. He was doing extremely well. He enjoyed the job. He was doing great. And then it was one night he knew he wasn't going to be working the next day because they were, it was supposed to be raining all day. So he knew he wasn't going to work. It was, I think, a Tuesday night or something like that. And he said, well, I'm going to go out. He was living at home with me. And he's like, well, I'm going to go out, with my friends. And I'm like, why are you going out again? Just stay home. Just stay home. Why do you need to go out on a Tuesday night? But he is, I'm going out. Well, he went out. Went up to Sarasota, went to a club, got drunk, got into a fight, again, fleeing the scene. He almost, the cops come, again, flees the scene. From what I understand, his car hit the cop, and he didn't get hurt. As far as I understand, he didn't get hurt, but he flees the screen. He's flying down the road, crashes into a palm tree, and has to be life flighted by helicopter because it almost killed him. So it's, again, totally out of the blue, totally unnecessary. It's like he was doing so well, and he just screws up again. It's like, again, getting into a fight and fleeing the scene. So that's why it was such a big sentence, because basically, you hit a cop with your car, even though he didn't get hurt, that's assault and battery. Yes.
It's a
Luckily,
big
yeah. Luckily, the cop didn't get hurt. Luckily, Stephen didn't kill anybody. Luckily, he didn't get killed, because I saw that car, and it was amazing that he did survive. It was that bad.
Were they behind him as he was fleeing, or did he just try to get out of there fast because he just had a fight, or was there officers like following him during that time?
Well, he was in the parking lot, I think, and already in his car, and he was about to leave when the police came, from what I understand.
Oh, okay.
So whenever,
That makes sense.
then he's like, okay, he just takes off, because that's what he does. He
Okay, that makes sense.
takes off.
Did you ever know EI to have like guns or anything like that?
Yes.
How did you find out? Did you find it like in his room?
I'm trying to remember. Actually, I think he told me about it. is what it was. I don't think I knew. I think he told me about it. He wanted me to get rid of it. So I got rid of it.
Okay.
So, because I don't like guns at all.
I can understand.
Yeah, I've never had a gun. I don't know anything about guns. And when he said to get rid of it, it's like, okay, I'm getting rid of it. So,
What, back in, like in the beginning, when you first started getting in trouble, getting out, or not even this beginning, this period, when you would see him get out, you would see that he tried to make a change inside of jail or prison. Am I correct?
Mhm.
That he would try to make some kind of changes. He'd come home,
Mhm.
and then after a while, he'd go back into,
mhm.
doing what he was doing. How did that make you feel every time you said him do that?
Very disappointed in, whenever he was in jail and he'd be talking to me on the phone and I'm changing, I never would buy it, the whole story. I'd say, okay, I know you're talking like you're going to change and you're talking like you have changed, but you have to prove it when you get out. And every time you got out, you would be good for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, if that. And then he'd get right back into trouble, and shortly after that, he's back into jail again. So this time was the first time that I honestly knew before he got out that he is definitely changed. He's finally matured. I think this last time he was sentenced, it hurt him so badly because, he wanted to be out with his children. And the pain I can see he has, that he missed out on their lives, such a huge part of their lives. And it's going to be very difficult for him to build that relationship back up with his children. And that's the other thing. The court system needs to understand that when they put somebody away for so long, that it hurts not just that person that did the crime, it hurts the entire family. It hurts their children, it hurts the parent, it hurts everybody. Everybody suffers. And, it's like, have the punishment fit the crime. And, as far as what I see happening in the court system for spending years and years okay, yes, they did something wrong. But why so many years of their life to pay for something that's really wasn't that, sure it was bad, but, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, for it's ridiculous. So that's...
I believe we're on the same page on that. What do you think clicked for him this time?
Like I said, I think it was finally the pain that he realized how badly he screwed up and how he's hurt his children. And I think that's his biggest thing finally, is that is he wants to be with his children. He wants to be their father. And he's finally matured to where he's accepted the things. Well, that's the other thing. He's always accepted that he's screwed up and that he's done the wrong thing. He's never pointed the finger at anybody or tried to blame anybody, including myself. I figured, he's going to want to point the finger at me because I do feel guilty that maybe, a lot of this is, of course, as a parent, it's your fault. Why is your kid like that? But it's the pain of the children, as far as he knows how much he hurt them, and he's hurt himself. He's missed out on so much. So that's, I think, the biggest reason why he's going to do the right thing this time, and this is finally behind him.
What do you think changed? What was that deciding factor? Like, was it just the hurt, or what do you think changed his heart? You know what I mean?
That's a good question for him. I don't know.
He had it from you, so.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think it was finally he realized how badly he screwed up.
Yeah.
That he can't get these years back with his children. It's.
Mm-hmm. What about when did he get, I guess, saved? Like, develop a relationship with Jesus Christ? Was that in prison? Was that outside of prison?
That was in prison. There again, I wasn't sure for the first in and out. He would say he was saved and he's going to do the right thing, and he's going to, and I just didn't buy it. As far as it was all talk. It was just all talk. But this last years that he's been in there, I think he's finally, truly, it's in his heart, and I know he wants to do right. So.
Let me see how I can phrase this, because I've asked it, but I'm asking it a different way. Have you physically seen a change? Like, because what convinces you that this is not just talk this time? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Other than, I don't know. It's his. You can tell he's more mature. He's finally more mature. I don't know. You're going to see it in his spirit. You can see it in his spirit that he just has changed and that he wants to do the right thing. He's done with doing the selling the drugs and all that stuff. He still has more adjusting and growing up to do, but that'll come with time.
What do you okay, so we have a couple more left. I know we've been out here. Tell me about, he has a friend named Zifa that died, or Zifa that died.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm saying the name.
Yeah, there again, this is so many years ago, I can't remember. But I do remember Stephen would keep in touch with a lot of people through me. So he would write letters, or they would write letters to me. I would then read them to him over the phone. And this is somebody that got out and then was killed like within weeks, I believe. And then I had to tell him that happened. So it was pretty hard because Stephen really, was trying to help him out. He'll have to tell you the story about that because I don't remember all the details. But I was the person that Stephen would ask, do this, contact this person, contact that person. And we were trying to set him up for a place to live. And he was involved with a minister, I can't remember. But he's the one that told me that he was killed. Then I was the one that had to tell Stephen.
How did you take it?
It was hard. I mean, it was very shocking that it happened right away. But again, I might have that whole story wrong.
No. He wanted me to ask you because he wants, like, sometimes I might ask multiple people who thought the same situation
I can see.
because he just wants to hear people's take on it and stuff like that. So it's okay if you don't.
Yeah. It was, there again, I knew, of course, he was going to take it hard.
Yeah.
But Stephen didn't talk much about it after I told him what happened because I didn't know really any details about it. So, but I knew he was hurt by it tremendously.
I can imagine the surprise.
Yeah.
In prison, how did prison affect his relationship with his kids?
Well, he has no relationship. During that time, pretty much. I took them on a few visits, but they really didn't want to go. They didn't, enjoy. I guess when they spent that little bit of time with their father, they were okay. But then as they got a little bit older, they just didn't want to go at all. Of course, I wasn't going to make them because it's very uncomfortable. They didn't have very much contact with them at all. So that's why I said he realized how much he hurt them whenever he went back again.
Did they ever just tell you like how they felt about the whole situation with their dad being locked up?
No, not really. We don't talk about it. I
That's-
mean,
that's tough.
yeah, they're you know, they're hurt and they don't want to talk about it.
Kids don't know how to communicate that.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, you know.
Mhm.
I think that makes sense. What would you? That's a tough question. I don't know, because I want to ask it, but it goes to a point where how much time did you see him as a father? Because he asks, do you believe he's a great dad? You know, to
Mhm.
kids.
Yeah,
But how much time did you even get to see
yeah.
him as a father?
Yeah, well, with Steven, even as a kid, he always loved playing with littler kids. So I always knew he'd be a great dad. But now that he's going to be in their lives more frequently, he has to learn how to be a dad. So I know that he wants to be a great dad, and I know he'll try, but he has to learn patience, which he's not good at. He's not a very patient person. So he has to learn a lot of patience with those kids because they need a lot of time to heal. They need time to get to know him. And I know he wants to step in immediately as a dad, but he hasn't been their dad. The other grandparents have been their mom and dad. So they've been living with those two people. That's who mom and dad are to them. And I'm sure it's a complicated feelings for them too, because they love those two people as their mother and father. So do they feel like they're letting or betraying their love with them by letting him come into their lives more? You know, I don't know. It's very complicated, but Steven's gonna have to learn to have patience because he just has to give them the time to get to know him. And like I said, I know he wants to be a great dad, but sometimes he tries forcing things, and that's not good.
What do you believe is his greatest fear?
I think his greatest fear is that he won't ever get that connection with his children. I think that's his greatest fear.
What is his greatest strength?
Strength. His personality.
He's charming. Well, what about weakness? Like his greatest weakness?
Being impatient.
I could go back to why he would go back to the streets, you know, after getting out. Patient that you have to
Mm-hmm.
work, you have to get a job,
Mm-hmm.
or you feel
Yeah.
it's not happening fast enough. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something. Well, there's something to think about. He never told me that, but I'm
Uh-huh.
just thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about his heartbreak with his ex? I believe he said he had a bad heartbreak.
Yeah. This for Steven, I don't know.
He gives you full reign to speak.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no. I always tried warning him that having a relationship over the phone and in jail with somebody it's not real. It's just not real. To him it was real, but somebody on the outside, you know, it might have been more of a fantasy to that person. It's like it's not real, and so I always tried warning him that, you know, I know it was real to him, but it's not really real to that person on the outside. I mean, if this is somebody you've never really met, it's just over the phone and letters. It's more of a fantasy world. And then with him, it was all about her, and that's all he could focus on. With her, she has a life out here in the world and busy with other things and all these other people. He's confined in this little box, and this is all he can focus on. And so he's obsessed over, you know, just focused on it. And so, of course, whenever it ended, it just tore him apart, and it still tears him up. And it's like, you know, once you're out and you're going to start experiencing the real world and life again, you know, this will be behind you. But yeah, he had a hard time with it. So, that's there again where I say, well, that would make a good song. put write down your feelings, that type of thing. Um, but it's
I can understand. So we have two more questions left. What's the biggest concern for this transition now that he's out?
right now it's like he needs to slow down a little bit. He's trying to do so much so fast. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm concerned that maybe he should be asking a little bit more for help for things he doesn't know, or he tries to handle it all himself. He thinks he should be able to handle everything himself, where it's like, it's okay to ask for help or how to do things. And I know I've been trying to be helpful, but he thinks I'm being the mom and I'm just, to stop it, and it's picking on him, or, I'm being real ridiculous and stop being a mom. And it's like, no, I'd be telling this to anybody. It's not because you're my son. It's like, I'm trying to help you accept the help for what it is. So,
I understand.
yeah.
I mean, just trying to do everything yourself is
Mhm.
it's not the way. Trust me.
Yeah.
And the final question, I'm not sure I've worded correctly. Do you believe he will do right this time?
I think so. I really, really think he'll do the right thing this time. I think he has a support system behind him, whereas before he didn't have that. So I think he's asking people to hold him accountable, which is great. So I just can't see him getting into trouble anymore. I mean, I hope to God, I pray he does the right thing this time, and just, it's like I said, to me, it's not hard to stay out of trouble, but just hope it stays like that. I know he's determined to stay out of trouble, so we'll just
Thank you.
pray.
That was all.